Thank you very much. F. and Taco. Here we are. We're ready to go. Flashpoint Esports up against Team Allegiance, and as they mentioned on the desk there, Toli, there are a lot of standing repercussions depending on the outcome of this game, not only for Team Allegiance, but Flashpoint isn't, locked into that 8th seed. If they find a 2-0 victory here, that could make a tiebreaker situation between Allegiance and Noble for that 8th spot.
Absolutely. And the magic key number here is just 1 for Team Allegiance.
Yes.
They find 1 win, they're going to be 1 step above the ladder for Noble. They're not going to have to worry about any tiebreaker scenarios, and Flashpoint could go over with a 2-0 victory. Getting 6 points would be 1 point over Noble.
That's right. So either way, we're going to have to wait and see at the outcome of this set. Early bans, a little bit surprising. Hunbat's not necessarily a weakened god necessarily, but can certainly have it in his god pool, which is a very strong god overall. And the Morgan taken away from Cyclone Spin. The picks are in early on here. Sylvanas going to be the selection for Flashpoint in the support role. And then the early Awillish Poseidon here for Allegiance. That tells me that they want pressure in that mid-jungle duo.
That's what it seems like to me. The early game is the key factor for Team Allegiance. They're a very momentum-based team. They want to find any sort of disadvantage to exploit on the opposition side, whereas Flashpoint looking like they're going to play rather very carefully here, picking up Sylvanas very early on the draft. Also having this Thorn now for a little bit of added global pressure.
Yeah, good pressure for themselves in that jungle and that global ultimate. Definitely something that Allegiance is going to have to try and match. We've already got that mid-jungle locked in here for ALG. Got a couple options with where they can go, and it's going to be the Bacchus. Surprisingly enough, if you would have told me Bacchus was picked in this match, I would have guaranteed it was going to Shadow Q on Flashpoint.
That's what I thought.
But it's going to be for PBM here for ALG.
And they're two very similar players, honestly. They even sound alike. If you put them in a Mumble server and you just close your eyes so you don't know who's talking, you just wouldn't be able to guess, honestly. And this composition here, though, out of Team Allegiance is very burst-oriented. Poseidon, Bacchus, Awillish. Normally, you see those two gods between mid and support paired up with the Nemesis, but Awillish is also a great idea, using advantage of the knockups.
Absolutely. Bacchus can create a gravity surge opportunity for Weekend in the jungle. And remember, PBM, he learned a lot of his support style from Shadow Q. He was kind of his mentor, if you will, during his early stages of his career. So now PBM's got a chance to show his old mentor who the new master is in town in the support role. A couple of warriors banned away early on here. Terra is kind of a warrior at this stage. Basically, that's a solo lane ban either way. Nike and Osiris, and then Scotty going to be the final ban up against Oceans for Team Allegiance.
I like the Osiris ban as well because that's a very aggressive solo laner, and with the resurgence of Osiris being this aggressive, Cyclone Spin is one of these guys that's just not afraid to be aggressive, and you put a guy like that under his belt, he's going to be doing wonders. And not to mention the way he transitions in team fights, going to have that anti-healing, not being able to take advantage of that Sylvanas. Yeah,
really solid ban there. Two gods that have seen a lot of recent success in that Osiris and Scotty. Not going to be able to give it to either of the side laners for Team Allegiance, who still do need both of those side lanes locked in, we would assume. The Hunter and solo laner. It's going to be Rom, the selection for Oceans. A standard god that we see plenty of, and for good reason.
You want to just farm it out in the laning phase and then make these semi-rotations in the jungle. You don't want to fully commit under the team fight because you just still want to maximize your farm on your lane. So you make the semi-rotation, you look to assist in these team fights with the snipes, and Oceans is one of these guys that's very good about hitting the snipes and looking for any sort of potential farm that he can in the map. And he stood out more to me in the beginning of Team Allegiance more than any other player. He was the all-star in this team once they were trying to figure themselves out.
Absolutely. At land, some of his on-her plays were just absolutely unbelievable when they came through the gauntlet and were able to make a splash there at Super Regionals. He was definitely making it happen on the on-her, but despite it being open, went for the ROM this time around. Hercules, the selection for the solo lane Aquarius. Now the mid laner is going to be Soul for Incon here, so a little bit of, and by a little bit, I mean a ton of tower push and objective damage potential out of Flashpoint's roster right now.
It could also be Medusa, though, being played by Incon as well.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He could potentially look to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if Xenotronics does play that Soul, because if you remember back to Luminosity days during the group lands between Barracuda and Xenotronics, we actually saw a lot of Xingwei and a lot of Soul being flexed between those two players specifically. So I'm expecting Xenotronics to play this Fire Goddess.
That's true. That's a very good point. We haven't seen a lot of Soul recently, though that she did receive some recent buffs in terms of what she can go for. But the Kuzenbo in the solo lane. We anticipate, at least, though, with Cyclone Spin, you never know. He could pull out something like the Bacchus, but a god that many thought wouldn't see a whole lot of competitive play is definitely there, at least a little bit overall. You saw Maniac play it, and then it got banned away from Maniac, so multiple picks and bans early on here in Kuzenbo's availability at the SPL.
And this is why Allegiance is such a scary team. You know, having the second pick, having the counter matchup in that solo lane, and Cyclone Spin is a guy that likes to also experiment anytime he has the opportunity to do so. Last week, he was able to bring out the Morrigan. Now, not to great success, but still had some advantages in some plays, and I wouldn't be surprised here if he pulls a little fast one onto Flashpoint with this one.
It was enough to get that success on the Morrigan, was enough to get it banned away from them this time around. So trying his hand at the new Guardian in that solo lane, definitely going to keep an eye on that. It is Incon on Soul in the mid lane, so Xenotronic's going to be playing that traditional Hunter in that in the duo lane there. So why haven't we seen a whole lot of Soul recently, Tolly, and what is making her kind of resurge a little bit?
The third ability, the Disapparate, is not going to have effect in terms of the Fatalis effect that Soul once used to have. With the removal of that, Soul loses a lot of her offensive capabilities, and that's one key option to why players have opted out of playing Soul. But people kind of forget that the magical burst damage between the Stellar Burst and the Supernova still exists. So once you get into the mid game and you have a decent amount of magical power, you're looking for a lot of plays.
PBM in trouble on this right, and Mirage going to be able to clean him up with that first blood hammer throw. Mirage on the board for Flashpoint early on. Cyclone did manage to pull out the purification beads with that sumo slam. Mirage almost went for a ride into the tower, but either way, he escapes with that first blood onto PBM.
And having two Guardians in the solo lane is not necessarily something that you want to do because you don't have too much lane control and pressure to be able to outclear your opposition. As a result, these double warriors between Aquarius on the Hercules, Mirage on the Thor, they've been able to get a slight edge.
Cyclone going to get tossed back all the way towards the tower, but Sumo slams back towards his side. He's going to be okay here in terms of damage, but Weaken is here and looking at Mirage to do the damage. Mirage doesn't have that hammer available, but Weaken without the ultimate, without the damage. Aquarius, there it is. Mirage gets number two early.
Where's the beads? He got pulled in. He was going to definitely get pushed back into danger, not respecting the damage potential, but out of Mirage and Aquarius, Weaken taking the second spill for Team Allegiance.
Oh, Aquarius once more. He's not done in this solo lane. Cyclone, again, still has that dash, but takes a lot of damage from Mirage once more. Aquarius and Mirage are absolutely dominating this right side of the map right now for Flashpoint.
Shutting down any sort of early potential out of Team Allegiance, and with Weaken taking a spill on the Sowillish and now having a one-level disadvantage to Mirage's Thor, the global pressure has now come online for Flashpoint. They're able to really look for another play here.
Is there a worse feeling for Cyclone Spin? I mean, you could talk about this as a solo laner, to watch your Guardian come and help you out, well, then he gets killed, and then your jungle comes to help you out, and well, he gets killed as well, and you're just sitting there like, okay, no one else come to my lane ever again. I'm soloing the rest of this match.
At this point, this is something that Cyclone Spin has to consider, potentially, unless he's going to get ganked here by Mirage continuously. But I don't necessarily expect that to happen, being so tanky on a Guardian with Mark of the Vanguard. You're not really worried about too much danger here in the form of Cyclone Spin. All you have to do is just look for the farms and look for the levels to make those rotations in the team fights, because Kuzenbo will still have a little bit of control finding the sumo slam onto somebody to get them out of position, not to mention the disorientation with the knockups of his ultimates.
Shadow Q here with Mirage trying to invade on Allegiance's red buff. Flashpoint, they weren't the ones who drafted for the early game as much as Allegiance did, I would say, with this Willish Poseidon combination. Weaken steals away that red buff with the cheeky little 3 there, but it looked like Allegiance really wanted to prioritize the pressure, at least in the mid lane, but they haven't had it quite yet. It's Flashpoint who have really been dictating the pace in terms of these invades.
And also, as a result of all the lack of pressure that Allegiance had in the mid and the solo lane, Flashpoint was able to respond in kind in the dual lane. They shut down Oceans in a 2v1 advantage for Flashpoint, taking away some of his buffs, and we see this 2-level disadvantage between this Medusa and the Rom.
Yeah, huge advantage right now for Xenotronics, and Flashpoint going to put that to work right now, pulling up this Gold Fury. No one from Allegiance is even close. Incon has that Stellar Burst and Supernova combination available to secure this if necessary, and he will do just that. Flashpoint secure the first big objective of the game. Gold Fury goes down pre-5 minutes, which isn't a death sentence necessarily because it's not worth that much gold, but being up 2,300 gold for 4 or 5 minutes, that's fairly significant.
With a 3,000 experience to boot as well. This is a different kind of flashpoint than what I'm used to seeing to start things off in the SPL spring split of Season 4. Looking like they've made these adaptations to great success in stride, really taking advantage of the mispositioning out of Allegiance. This double warrior combination between Herc and Thor really setting the pace with these 2 kills, and now having the Gold Fury, Mirage is on a good pace here.
And now he's going to try and say hello to Cyclone Spin once more. Cyclone's been on the receiving end of this combo a couple times. Love the idea from Aquarius to hold the push and hope that Cyclone Spin would panic and use that sumo slam. Cyclone a little bit too tenured to make that rookie mistake, but either way, like the thought process there out of the rookie solo laner for Flashpoint.
Xenotronics 3 levels ahead. Make that 2 actually, as Oceans just dings level 7 here, having the mobility online on this Medusa. Let's see what he goes for as he goes back to the base. Going to start onto that Transcendence, very typical style out of Medusa, as she is more ability based.
It looks like Oceans is going to go for a Transcendence of his own, going for the Death Toll, which is standard for the ROM, less ability based than that of Xenotronics, but why do we see Oceans going for that? Hold that thought. A Cyclone gonna eat a dunk there from Mirage, but responds with an ultimate of his own. 4 members here from Allegiance trying to respond into the pressure that Flashpoint has put onto the solo lane, but Flashpoint able to get out of danger without much issue. Going back to this Hunter pickup here, we usually see the Devourer's Gauntlets if you're gonna see a stacking item on the ROM. Why the Transcendence here?
It seems to me that Oceans recognizes he's going to be so far behind in this laning phase that he wants the MP5 to stay in there as long as possible, throw out the arrows whenever he needs to. And not only that, when he does make these semi-rotations, he's going to need that physical power spike to be able to do more damage on those snipes to secure some kills. He's not necessarily worried about lifestealing because he's not going to put himself in a position to get boxed out by Xenotronics in the first place.
That's a great point as well about the snipes in particular, because those everyone knows that ROM snipes do a lot of damage, but the scaling on them is very, very high. And while the rest of his kit may not synergize great with Transcendence, the ultimate certainly will. So Ocean's definitely going to look to make the plays from a distance with that ultimate. We can just popping in here, making sure Xenotronics knows he's got his eye on him and is going to retreat back to his jungle. Already dropped the red buff for Allegiance, but got to try and defend this purple 3-man grouping up against the 4 from Team Allegiance. So Flashpoint going to concede the enemy buffs because Mirage has really spent the majority of his time on this right-hand side, and with the way Aquarius has played early on in this game, I can't really blame him totally.
The setup has just been on point. Every time Thor stuns, that's a guaranteed pull-push combination from Aquarius, and the timing of the gank earlier on by Allegiance was pretty well timed considering Gold Fury was not available for either team to pick up. But the fact of the matter is they're still down so much experience that every single time that they make these rotations, they're giving up farm in the laning phase, and they were down about 3,000 experience earlier on. It's now been 4,000 the past couple minutes.
It's only getting worse for Allegiance at the moment. And again, Mirage just hanging out on this right-hand side. Cyclone's been clearly the focus in this matchup. And if you're going to get focused in the solo lane, Tully, would you rather have a passive Guardian like a Kuzenbo, or would you rather be a more aggressive warrior that could maybe try and turn it around?
Definitely just a passive Guardian, because you don't need the farm necessarily to make an impact in the game. You just need the levels. As long as you're not being zoned out of experience, you're still going to make your presence known. Once level the 12-minute mark and above happens, you know, everyone's going to be level 12. You're going to find that second relic opportunity, and now going for some more cooldown reduction on the form of Cyclone Spin. This is the point in time where he could look to start looking for some plays, unless he's going to go for a hide of enemy in line, trying to synergize with his Thorns.
Certainly could. Xenotronic going to have a tough time dealing with Cyclone Spin if he's ever able to safely get out of this laning phase, though he's done a good job so far despite the 2 kills happening in his lane. He's sitting a little bit about a level and a half down to that of Aquarius. I'm really excited to see this Soul pick up, Tully, because I think that while a lot of the pro players in the community in general started to think that Soul wasn't a very good character, I think that she kind of, in my mind, just had a role shift. She's less of a hunter now, you know, a magical hunter than she used to be without that Fatalis effect. But the additional damage on her ultimate and just how much damage she provides in general, I think she can provide for a great mid-mage for a team.
Nice pull by Cyclone Spin, in a lot of trouble, but a nice ultimate to counteract Shadow Q's own. not putting himself out of position. ALG does secure that one big Fire Giant Elemental, and it's surprising to see 9.5 minute mark, a team fight just over that one little gold.
Shadowcue pulled in through the wall, but it's only Weekend there to try and kill him. Mirage comes dunking down onto Weekend, who holds the Purification Beads and is then pulled back in. Incon rolling into him with those auto attacks. Weekend pulled back in. The Supernova's gonna confirm it. Incon on the board for Flashpoint. The first kill not going to Mirage.
Yet again, Weekend just holding onto his beads a little bit too long. The safety from PBM was not enough to really save his jungler, and with that Flashpoint, they have a one-man advantage, feeling very confident with the rotation from Xenotronics, grabbing themselves this Portal Demon.
And once more, we've seen this problem, I think, over and over again from Allegiance totally, is that they don't feel like they are the aggressors, and that's very surprising to me with the roster that they have. They're kind of just waiting for the enemy to make a mistake in some situations, but in that point, it was actually Allegiance making the mistake. Weekend alone on those right side mid harpies pulls in Shadowcue to literally no follow-up.
That's the last person that Weekend was definitely looking for there. And I like the idea and the mindset trying to look for the play through those mid-harpies. You can definitely catch a lot of people slipping around that corner. It's not necessarily the easiest place to pull from, but it takes a lot of execution. Weekend could potentially look for that. Gold Fury, though, very low.
PBM's here. There's the flop. The Intoxicate as well. Gold Fury still goes the way of Flashpoint, and PBM may pay for it. Knock up from Shadowcue. The meditation is enough to save PBM's life for now, but another great pull coming out of Shadow. Secures the kill for Xenotronics. Met Yankee trying to answer back, still has that Kraken waiting to use it. It's going to be Shadowcue the target, and Allegiance is on the board courtesy of Met Yankee's big old duck coming out of the ground, but still they're down significantly. Gold Fury and 1-for-1, that still favors Flashpoint.
Absolutely. Not much to respond for Team Allegiance except potentially this tier 1 mid tower. Incon grabbing his own red buff instead of trying to defend this tier 1 mid tower, which is surprising considering he has the Supernova still available to him, and that could potentially be an easy defense 1-on-3, but rather play it safe than sorry, not giving up his own life, because had he done so and lost his life, they could have lost even more.
Weekend in trouble due to the damage from Mirage. Gonna jump away. Mirage not gonna let him go for free. The dunk's only gonna hit Met Yankee. Mirage using that Hydra's Lament auto to try and finish off Weekend, but it's gonna be Incon with the Stellar Burst that secures it for Flashpoint. Aquarius teleports in. Met Yankee forced to use the Purification Beads in response to Mirage's stun, and Oceans finds a kill onto Xenotronics with the help of Polar Bear Mike. So what Allegiance loses on the right side, they pick up on the left. And now it's Flashpoint's turn to try and answer back with a tower of their own.
Very important kill onto Allegiance for Oceans to get back into the game. He was down 2 levels for a majority of this time, only down 1 level currently, but Flashpoint answered back with an objective of their own, still keeping the gold lead relatively healthy for them, about 4,500 gold here. Experience still slowly climbing in their favor. You know, they were up 3,000, they were up 4,000, now they're quietly up 5,000. And Shadowcue, he's been having probably the best performance I've seen him had in quite a long time.
Yeah, he's absolutely killing it right now. The pulls have been really, really strong out of the veteran support player for Flashpoint. And this team, I think that they are similar to SOAR in a lot of ways in terms of it. I think that the team just didn't have the chemistry necessary to really come together and play at a high level. Now, I think that a lot of people would say and make the argument that SOAR has a higher player quality across the board, but I think that teams have been consistently underestimating Flashpoint and what they can do.
They have the mechanical skill. It's just you can't sleep on this team. You have to make sure that you don't put yourself in these positions where you're going to get exploited. And the double Guardian versus double Warrior setup to start things off heavily not favoring Allegiance, which is why they have this slight disadvantage, at least in the level department between these two soul laners. 2-level advantage for Aquarius currently, and the disadvantage also Mirage being able to take advantage of that 1 level ahead of Weekend.
Yeah, sitting at 2-0-3 compared to Weekend's 0-3-1. The Awilix has not worked out thus far for Team Allegiance. You pick the Awilix for early pressure and the knock-up synergy, and we haven't really seen that synergy or the early pressure whatsoever. Incon, Shadowcue, and Mirage join Aquarius in this solo lane, trying to get a little bit of pressure. The flop is on to Shadowcue, but Weekend decides not to pull in the support once more. He made that mistake once. The pull there onto PBM, not going to result in anything for Flashpoint. But a 4-man grouping here. Flashpoint seem to want to force this lead that they've earned for themselves early on.
Gold Fury still not responding for another minute 40 seconds, and this is when the soul lane action kicks on up. Mirage not able to connect on the stun. Weekend neither, throwing the Suku out. Blue buff has respawned, and this is what Weekend's going to do while waiting to see if there's going to be any sort of action. Always trying to maximize your farm is the mindset of a jungler.
Fire Demon Portal not due to respawn for a couple more seconds. PBM checks to make sure that nothing fishy's happening around this fire giant pit. I was trying to make a fish pun there, I suppose, with the turtle, but
you tried.
It's close. They're both aquatic animals.
You know, you try, and try again.
I'm going to. You know, I'm never going to give up the pun life. It's just what I'm made for.
You didn't choose the pun life. The pun life chose you.
We both know that's true. Oh, Xenotronic's going to be able to secure those oracles fairly easily, continuing to have the pressure in this lane despite the kill that Oceans was able to find on him with the help of PBM.
Mirage about to have a nice little power spike once he does finish off this Jotun's Wrath, having a decent amount of cooldown reduction, 10% on Hydra's Lament, 20% on that Jotun's Wrath, and this is going to be very short cooldowns here in the form of the Hammer and the Berserker Barrage to continue any sort of aggression here, and with a level disadvantage on the side of Allegiance, not going to have a second relic available for Polar Bear Mike for quite a while, so this is going to be 10 versus 9, at least in the relic department.
I think it's going to be difficult for Allegiance to really take these 5-on-5, 4-on-4 engagements totally because of how good Flashpoint's team fight composition is. It's not the typical, you know, Hunbats, Zeus sort of team fighting composition where it's just a ton of AoE, but they just have consistent damage across the board with an excellent front liner here between Shadowq and Aquarius.
Something I just realized is Allegiance doesn't really have this long-range setup compared to Flashpoint. Who's going to do the long... Like, you have to commit PBM to belly flopping from far away, but then he's going to be out of position to do so. And whereas you look at Flashpoint, they have, you know, the Thor stun, they have the Hercules pull, which doesn't put him out of position, the pull also from Shadowq, not to mention the root. Flashpoint just has all these safe engagements, whereas Allegiance has to put themselves in a little riskier spot to find the engagements.
Well, Weekend already has to use those purification beads just due to the damage of the stun double tap combination coming out of Mirage, who still has not completed that Jotun's Wrath. Portal Demon was the focus for a moment there for Flashpoint, but decided against it, with most of Allegiance there trying to dissuade them from doing it.
Talking about the 10 versus 9 relic department, the 10th relic for Flashpoint, Shadowq picking up that Aegis is a great opportunity to really continue to bait himself against Allegiance, and more importantly, specifically against Med Yankees Kraken here. Doing a good job as Incon trying to bait out members from Allegiance, just throwing out the particle effects. If some members from Allegiance are in the distance, they'll see these particles, they might want to overcommit a little bit, and that can give Flashpoint the opportunity to get that person out of position.
Not only that, but stacking up the Soul passive, gaining extra attack speed and damage with that heat. Incon now has the Stellar Burst and the first ability maxed, so he's going to be able to pop that heat up pretty quickly, and that's where Soul really starts to... No, he's actually leveling to Disapparate before the Radiance. So why do you think that is, Toli?
It's an interesting idea. Trying to have a little bit more mobility on the side of the Disapparate is not a bad idea, but having more heat is just going to give you more offensive capability. Considering how safe Flashpoint's composition is, Disapparate not really completely necessary, I feel like, for Incon, but it's just a small little min-max thing that doesn't really matter considering how successful Flashpoint currently is.
The slow immunity comes in big up against Met Yankee, and if he can get into that corporeal form, then he can get out of the damage of that Kraken. And one of the reasons that we saw a lot of Soul players leveling that Radiance was because of the extra heal that you would get whenever you leveled it, but that's no longer a part of leveling that ability. You immediately get a pretty big heal right away from just rank 1 of Radiance. So a little bit of a switch up here from Incon, and I really like the idea coming out of the mid laner. Gold Fury started up
very low
by Allegiance
very quickly.
Yeah, Xenotronics has got to make a play soon. He's got that Petrify, comes around the corner and pops it and steals it away. Weekend, he's got no beads, and Xeno gets the kill for his efforts. Oceans trying to get away from Mirage and will be able to do so, but Flashpoint steal away the Gold Fury and the life of the enemy jungler.
Nothing is going right for Allegiance here. They made a nice little attempt onto this Gold Fury, but they didn't have the vision underneath those left side mid harpies on the aggressive side, so hovering around that corner was Xenotronics, and that's the beauty of SMITE. You're able to hug around some of these walls and corners using the camera to your advantage to still see what's going on and then make the necessary plays, and that's one ability, the Petrify, that's so important. Like that, if you can execute that in a sneaky fashion like that, you can turn a team fight completely on its head.
Flashpoint and Xenotronics has turned this game completely on its head. That Gold Fury could have put Allegiance right back into this one. Instead, it might be the last nail in the coffin as the tier 1 tower falls, the tier 2 tower falls, and now Flashpoint is up almost 10,000 gold just like that. Portal Demon going to be secured by Flashpoint here as well, and that's going to mean another bunch of gold in their favor, 150 gold per player. And Flashpoint, they get to back and spend a whole lot right now.
Spend a lot of that gold in hand. Over 2,000 was 4 of their players just now, taking advantage of that portal Mirage, going back through it. This is the point in time where Flashpoint can start grouping up in 5v5 spots with this kind of experience and gold lead. They don't have to dive past the tier 2 tower, but all they have to do is just continuously siege it down slowly and surely with all this long-range setup like we mentioned before earlier on, not to mention the healing from Shadow Q to negate a lot of the poke potential from Allegiance.
I mean, we talked about, or really I was talking about earlier, Soul's sort of role shift from a magical hunter into a burst mage, or more of a sustained damage mage in the middle of these team fights. But even with those nerfs, she can still push towers like basically no other with that passive. Incon doesn't have any real penetration online yet outside of the pen boots and the Dynasty plate helm, so no late game Obsidian Shard to make sure that Soul can really shred these towers, but between the Soul and the Medusa for Xenotronics, these towers are not going to stand for long. Allegiance going to have to make a quick decision in terms of defending them.
And the ward positioning has just been on point from Flashpoint, denying any sort of vision from Allegiance on the corner. Makes it very difficult for Weekend to position himself behind the members of Flashpoint, trying to take advantage of the blink opportunity engagements for this Awilish.
This is one of the problems with Awilish, I think, Toli, is that she's amazing when you're ahead. When the enemy team is running from you, there are very few gods you'd rather have as Cyclone Spin gets pulled back in and has to use that Watery Grave as a response, but he does get the beads out of Xenotronics there, so not the end of the world in terms of using that ultimate. But when you're playing Awilish and the enemy team is sieging you down, it is very difficult to fulfill your role.
Absolutely, unless there's an engagement on the opposition where they have a jump that you can pull them in, but without that case, it's going to be Flashpoint engaging under the tier 2 tower. Mirage diving the back line.
Finds 2 with the ult. The Petrify is on point right behind it. Weaken is 1 HP, but Oceans turns it around onto Mirage. The rest of Flashpoint is able to secure that tier 2 tower and immediately turn, tail, and run. So overall for Allegiance, they lose a tier 2, but they do pick up Mirage, giving him his first death of the game.
Flashpoint could have continued to fight. There was a 4-on-3. There was a little bit of a disconnect between Allegiance. It's PBM, Oceans, and Cyclone Spin against the 4 remaining members of Allegiance. But either way, walking away rather cleanly, only sacrificing Mirage just to get 1,500 gold total for Flashpoint, extending their advantage to beyond the 10,000 gold mark. And this is a big milestone for Flashpoint to be able to get this lead and look for more plays as Fire Giant becomes more important as the time progresses.
Over 10,000 gold for Flashpoint. That's what they've got over their oppositional team, Allegiance. Flashpoint are not locked into the 8th seed coming into the Gauntlet land, and if they can jump up, if they find a 2-0 victory here, Toli, they actually end up in 6th. So that's
right.
A significant jump if they're able to find both victories.
Over Noble and over Allegiance. That would be interesting to see, like, considering the fact that they've been statistically the worst North American team currently in the spring split of Season 4, to go up to at least 6th over Noble, over Team Allegiance, who has players that some consider to be, world-class elite players. You're looking at Cyclone Spin and Ocean specifically out of Team Allegiance.
Yeah, and then on the side of Noble, you've got MLC Stealth, a former world champion. That's the most tenured player on their roster. So I think a lot of people would be surprised if Flashpoint could pull off these 2 victories up against Allegiance. Remember, Allegiance, they only need 1 victory in order to make sure they will be the 6th seed coming into the Gauntlet land. The only way that they end up in 8th, or Noble doesn't get that 7th seed, is if there's a tiebreaker situation between Allegiance and Team Noble. Xenotronics forced to use that Aegis in the mid lane after the nice knock-up from Weekend following up his blink. Mirage found the dunk, but not enough damage on a Polar Bear Mike.
I'm surprised Flashpoint are trying to look for an engagement in the mid without any tier 1 tower to really go for. Gold Fury has been available this whole time around. There is no lifesteal in the form of Xenotronics to be able to take advantage of the health disparity, but does have the Wisps.
Cyclone gets plucked, but not enough distance there on Aquarius' 2 to pull him in with the driving strike as well. Incon just frontlining a little bit, trying to get some poke onto Polar Bear Mike, but the level 13 Bacchus has become pretty tanky now after finishing off that Heartward Amulet Incon again just stacking up that passive by using those auto attacks to not even leash the Gold Fury. Gold Fury down below half HP. Allegiance want to fight over this, don't feel like they can give it up. A lot of damage onto PBM. The Petrify comes out from Xenotronics, but not enough to secure a kill. Cyclone Spin still in that front line. Meditation popped by Allegiance as Aquarius is around trying to deal with Oceans. The Kraken's A is out by Incon. Weaken dives into 3. Good amount of damage onto the jungler, and Oceans bought himself some time up into his ultimate. Aquarius not going to be able to chase him down, but it's enough to get everyone back. 2-man dunk there from Mirage. The wall's beautiful as well. Met Yankee on the run. The Supernova is nowhere near close to home there for Incon, though.
The pull onto PBM. He might be the first victim. Nice driving strike. Cyclone Spin's ultimate wasn't in time. Great stun from Mirage, but it doesn't matter. I thought the teleport wasn't going to go through. Incon finding the second kill for his teammates in that encounter. 5-on-3 now. It's going to allow Flashpoint to get another 1,500 gold off of this tier 2 mid.
Are you surprised that Allegiance fought over that Gold Fury being down as much as they are?
Not necessarily, because Mirage's ultimate was not available. Xenotronics Beads was not available. This could have been a great opportunity because Cyclone Spin, he tried to bait himself in a position to take a lot of damage using the Thorns as well as the Thorns from his Relic, but he got stunned out, and during that CC, he couldn't pop either of those two opportunities for himself. He was about half health before he popped his Relic and his Thorns ability, and he was just completely out of the fight. And not to mention, Aquarius diving the backline, Oceans was eliminated from that fight.
And Oceans has really been the only hope for Allegiance in these mid to late game team fights. He was the one who found the turnaround kill onto Mirage when he was diving Weaken on that right-hand side. It's going to be difficult for Allegiance to fight into it without this Hunter in the late game. Aquarius definitely fulfilling his role in that last engagement. Allegiance do secure this Gold Fury, knocking down that lead slightly down below 12,000 gold. But Flashpoint, they got the Portal Demon, and they're looking at this big brother, the Fire Giant itself. PBM is here, gonna have to try and make a steal happen, I think, Tully. That's really Allegiance's only hope at this stage. PBM waiting, there's the belly flop in, but it goes the way of Flashpoint. PBM not able to steal it away, courtesy of that Petrify from Xenotronics, which usually is reserved as a team fighting ultimate, but in this game, it's been the objective ultimate.
I don't mind that potential steal attempt by Polar Bear Mike in this spot when you're down 12,000 gold.
Yeah.
You want to try to deny the Fire Giant. You know, you still have all your two Phoenixes rather available, so you don't have to worry about Fire Minions going into your Titan room necessarily. And had that Fire Giant steal been successful for PBM, it would have delayed Flashpoint just a little bit.
Well, right side Phoenix gonna fall pretty quickly here to that of Flashpoint. Oceans and Weaken were split pushing that left, but decided to back before getting this tier 2 tower. Thought they might just try and get that 1,500 gold for themselves. Shadowq not going to get knocked up, knows exactly what he has to be wary of when it comes to a Willish being on the other team. Had
those two members from Allegiance committed under that tier 2 tower, Flashpoint just would have put their pedal to the metal straight to the Titan room. It would have been a 5-on-2 position for Allegiance, and it would have been very difficult to really hold on to the Titan. So valuing the health and safety of their Titan way more than just that 1,500 gold on the left.
Either way, Flashpoint, they're in a commanding position right now, totally up right around 13,000 gold. All 5 members with the Fire Giant for quite some time still. It's going to be difficult for Allegiance to fight back into this one. Just looking back at what kind of transpired in this game, where do you think Allegiance kind of dropped the ball?
Honestly, it was like we mentioned before, the double Guardians versus double Warriors, which actually, it should have been advantageous for Flashpoint a little bit, but not to the point where they're getting kills. These 2 kills were very important for Flashpoint to get into momentum, and not only that, while that was happening on the right-hand side, the left-hand side, it was Xenotronics and Shadowq that was in a 2v1 against Oceans, and that disparity allowed the purple buff and the red buff to be stripped away from the members of Allegiance, not having the experience necessary, disadvantage for Oceans throughout the early laning phase.
That's right. Oceans didn't get any pressure on that left-hand side because of the kind of combination that Allegiance went with, and if you're going to give up that entire left side, you can't really afford to give up kills or your buffs on the right side. It's kind of exactly what happened to Allegiance so far here in Game 1. Not over yet, though. Still got 1 Phoenix to defend. Here we're at the 28-minute mark, and with 2 tier 1 towers down for Team Allegiance, they could theoretically, if they are able to find a clean deicide here, get down and try and make a push into the enemy Titan room, especially with the late game Frenzy or something of the sort. No Frenzy picked up right now, though. for them to answer back to flashpoints picked up by ShadowQ. 2 flickering rituals, 1 for Mirage, 1 for Incon.
Ooh, Cyclone Spin getting pulled, double pulled into a nice push. The ultimate not enough. The damage is successful. Nice egg is coming out of Mirage, negating that Kraken, but PBM, he's in no man's land after that flop.
Incon just deleted PBM. The wall is beautiful from Mirage. Oceans does get out until the pull is beautiful by ShadowQ, and Xeno cleans up his ADC counterpart. Left side Phoenix gone. I think we could say the same for the Titan Toli. Flashpoint looking to end the spring split on a high note with a dominant performance up against Team Allegiance.
So far, first game.